What's up, troopers? We are here for another TFT mini. We're going to be covering the various core troopers that come out in the shiny new starter sets that we have for Star Wars Legion. So, going to be starting with the old Rebel Trooper.
Old
It's
Faithful.
Yeah, it's been around since the very beginning of the game. Them and the Stormtroopers. They when Legion was updated, it got some pretty important, or one very important change, which is the fact that it got Agile 1 when in the before time it was relying on other people giving it dodges in order to utilize that nimble keyword.
Yeah.
Now it can just make its own by moving around, which is very nice and has made this a lot more viable than it used to be, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, generally. It definitely, specifically on turn one, your Rebel Troopers are going to be protected
Yeah.
pretty well, unless your opponent has some like pesky commandos on the other side of the board or something. I think one of the things to take into consideration with Agile is that it is time insensitive. So
Yes.
you need to be, it's not defend. So you don't get the dodge token at the top of the turn. You have to activate and move in order to get it. Um, yeah,
Which is
unless you
fine.
have like a free move shenanigans going on.
Yeah. They're probably not getting orders anyway, in most rebel lists, like, to be honest. And so usually better to have Agile 1 than defend for these guys, but the timing sensitive part matters a lot because your opponent, if they are paying attention, is going to know that if they want to take care of a rebel trooper, it's going to be before they do anything. When they are just sitting there with their regular so-called T-shirt saves of the surging white dice, and become very killable at that point. But once they start moving around, the dodge token and the nimble makes them a much more annoying target to shoot at. It should be noted also that, like with stormtroopers, they are courage one. We'll talk about a semi niche case where you can get around that a little bit, but of course the other thing about rebel troopers is that you can stop them in their tracks with one shot usually, and so if you draw that core token and you look at the board and see that I could choose from one of three different Rebel Trooper units, but there's one of them that I really want to get on the point this round. Activate that one first because because again, if it double moves, then it's going to have two dodge tokens. It can be hiding behind heavy cover on a POI. All of a sudden, it becomes a not great target. Versus if it hasn't moved yet, it becomes an amazing target because then you could be forced into not achieving anything.
Yeah, I think to that end, this is the core unit of all of the core units that you want to hide behind LOS blocks the most. I think. Um, Particularly because of that time insensitivity
Yeah.
and the fact that if your opponent does suppress them, it's really difficult to get them to be relevant.
Yes. They do have a range 3 gun, but it's if the rebel troopers are not on the point and they are shooting at you, then as the opponent of that rebel player, then they are pretty happy with that situation because they do, of course, do not surge on attack. There are a couple ways to mitigate that, which I think that we'll get to now. Let's
Yeah,
start talking about what the heavy options are. We'll go in alphabetical order. So the first one we have is the DLT-20A. This is an upgrade that had its heyday in Legacy Legion, I would say.
yeah, for sure.
Interestingly, it has fallen out of favor. There's a couple different reasons for this, but why? What do you think is the main reason why this is tied with the last one that we'll talk about as far as the least commonly taking heavy on Rebel Troopers?
I think the big thing with this one is the price point. Frankly, it's 26 points as opposed to the 40-point base for the squad. You're paying almost 75% of what you paid for the squad to take the upgrade.
Yeah.
But it also like range 4 specifically on these guys that want to be moving, right? This is
Yes.
not does not really a unit that is wants to like sit back and shoot. It wants
Right.
to be moving and shooting, right? So the thing that is nice about this upgrade is the critical one. It kind of mitigates the not surging aspect, which you were talking about earlier. The range 4 is decent for a poke on turn 1, but honestly, the dice pool isn't even that consistent on just the range 4 gun. Like 2 black, 1 white, critical 1 is fine, but it's not the most stellar of range dice pools.
Yeah, and I think that it becomes even clearer if I. So, like, what if I were to ask you for only 1 point more and for one range less? You could have the exact same dice, the exact same surge modification, and then just for fun, we'll toss in impact one, ion one. But does that sound like a pretty good deal to you?
Yeah, I mean the range 4 is basically it kind of useless for rebels. You're gonna want to double move on turn 1 most of the time, anyways, and then ion's just really really good generally.
Yes,
So
it gets rid of shields. That's even like the least useful part about it, but it adds ion tokens to both droids and vehicles.
sure.
And then it
Both
also
excellent.
has. Oh yeah, exactly. And then it has the impact keyword plus the critical to make it extra likely that you're going to be able to actually inflict that ion token. It is quite common because you have a 7 dice roll with a full unit. It's fairly common that you're going to have a natty crit, a surge, and then a regular hit. Regular hit changes to a crit with impact, and then all of a sudden you are hitting something like a Rebel ATRT with 3 dice. That thing is getting an ion token, like it just is.
Most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Things can happen. Things can happen. But it's the the fact that this is it's expensive. It's still quite expensive from a ratio standpoint, but you're getting a lot with it, and so that is why this is probably tied with the next heavy as far as like being the most popular one at the moment in the game. The next one being the SX21. This is sort of the opposite of the DLT20, where it arguably never had time in the sun in Legacy Legion. It was always sort of the weapon that was made and then forgotten about, even though they did progressively make it cheaper and cheaper. But then I think it was when New Legion hit that it was super duper cheap. It is 13 points, and it is
It's the
true
cheapest
that
heavy weapon in the game.
it is the cheapest heavy weapon in the game. It's 2 points cheaper than the Force Pike, which I think might be the next one. But yeah, not a whole lot that you're paying. It's true that on the approach, because this is a range 2 weapon, that you may be just using the baseline Rebel weapon for the first shot that unit takes, but then probably for the rest of the game, it's going to be able to just toss a bunch of extra dice out, and also has impact 1 for good measure. And so you're getting the extra health, you're getting the extra dice. It's really not a bad trade for 13 points.
Yeah, and with the game being played a lot at range 2 these days, it's excellent. You're going to be able to use this probably 3 out of 5 turns as long as the unit remains alive, which I guess is questionable because they're rebel troopers. But
Yeah.
I definitely think that this is the epitome of like a spammable heavy weapon. Like you can just take a bunch of 53-point rebel troopers and be very happy about the decisions that you've made in this building. I think generally,
Yeah.
So
It's quite efficient, honestly. And considering the fact that the rebel troopers, it creates a situation where they don't make for like an amazingly attractive target when it's that cheap, and the rebel player is usually going to have scarier stuff on there, like your Din Djarin's or your land speeders or things like that. Is that they can sneakily just sort of hang out and do more damage than you think they would.
well, with the shotgun, they're like cheaper than the more expensive core units without any upgrades. Right?
Yeah, it's wild. Like they're they're cheaper than a clone trooper, like a naked clone trooper.
Yes, and they have double the offensive output.
Yeah, so not bad. SX21. In comparison, what is bad, unfortunately, now, and some would say forever since the beginning, the before time, is the poor Rebel Z6, which is may look cool. It certainly looked cool to me when I was a brand new player and I was looking at the Clone Z6 and I was like, 6 dice. Whoa, that's rad. But once you spend enough time playing and you learn what white attack dice are like when they're not surging, it just like, even though this is relatively cheap at 20 points, like somewhere in between all the ones we've been talking about, it just doesn't have great output at all.
Yeah, I would caution people against taking this one in its current form and iteration. If you're looking to do mass quantities of dice, the XX21 is cheaper and better.
Yes.
If you are looking to just like do more damage consistently, like this isn't it. You should probably take the DLT at that point,
I would take the Ion at that point.
or the Ion. Yeah,
Yeah.
like one of the two. This just fits in like a weird middle zone, and um, all of the other ones are like statistically better.
Yep. I would just move past it for now. It'll probably get cheaper before too long. So the personnel slot, we're not going to go over every single one here. I think for all these videos, we're going to try to keep to the ones that are commonly seen. Don't see a lot of medics in Rebels, but in comparison to that, you do see a fair number of astromechs. It is only 8 points. There are plenty of Rebel vehicle heavy lists, and especially in this world where there are a lot of ion tokens floating around, or damaged tokens on your X-34s, things like that, is being able to do that repair one where you can either get rid of a wound or either one of those items is very useful and can actually save a game state from being tortured. So it's really not a bad trade for 8 points. The other one that I think there's two others that are worth talking about at least. The captain is one that will let you functionally once per game ignore the suppression that's on your unit. It will not let you ignore panic, which is something important to remember. But
Get wrecked.
You basically skip the rally step. And so you can't get rid of suppression, but you also can't be suppressed. And so it allows you to like do both of your actions for one round per game functionally. I have seen this the most in Ewok lists, when Rebel Troopers are special guest stars there, because they do not get rid of their suppression at the end of every round the way you do in a normal list. And so this is a way to mitigate that, along with the multiple source of Inspire that list has. And lastly, let's talk about the Super Squad, Rebel Trooper Squad. Mike, what do you think about the Rebel Trooper Squad at this moment? 45 points as we record this.
Yeah, I would say that this is probably the least good Super Squad presently. In the
agree.
current iteration of the game, I would caution you against this. If you really want to try it out, go for it. I would recommend probably the best way to take this is Super Squad plus the shotgun. It's a lot of dice if it hits home, but overall, Rebels don't want to be in a place where they're spending 100 points on core units. Is really the Rebel faction as a whole is not super focused on its core.
The bigger a target it is, the more the Courage one will bite you in the butt.
Yes, not implacable. Indomitable goes a little bit of the way to fixing that, but you roll blanks on red dice sometimes, and if you do with your Rebel Trooper, you're gonna be very sad. So
yeah, like rolling, if you have two suppression, like rolling 2 red dice, it doesn't feel good. Anybody who's ever played ARC Troopers against snipers knows that you're gonna miss one of those dice plenty of times.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think that I agree. The Rebel Trooper Squad is probably like the least good argument right now. They don't surge to hit, and so adding those extra dice, it doesn't expand, or like it doesn't multiply your chances of doing damage in any way. It literally just adds, and that's just not worth 45 points.
Yes, and I would say that if you're looking at the Super Squad and Rebels specifically, and you haven't filled all your core slots in, you should just take another Rebel Trooper. Having an additional scoring unit is specifically in Rebels. You're triggering Agile more. It's like just another target to spread out the damage. Like Rebel Troopers get chunked. Like it's not uncommon to do more than 4 damage to a Rebel Trooper unit at a time. So like, allowing them to like overkill your units and like waste damage is better than allowing them to be like, oh yeah, I did 6 wounds to your Super Squad, and now you have like 3 guys left. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
So
Gear slot, I think that the main one to call out here is prepared supplies, just because that gives you, once per game and out for the timing problem that we talked about before, because it's timing neutral when you have a cash dodge. It gets a little bit to the question of, do you want to be investing more upgrade points into a Courage 1 squad that is mostly existing to kind of lay low and plink and contest points? There's situations where it makes sense, especially if you did invest with a heavy weapon on of some kind on that rebel trooper, then it would make them a more attractive target, and therefore it's a better idea to bring prepared supplies. But I don't really think that there's any other gear that I would really consider on a rebel trooper.
Probably not. If you're doing the DLT thing, it's possible that you want to look at recon intel. It's pretty pricey, but it is a thing you can do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. And then grenades is a funky one, because like there is a world where you can make an argument for either frags or impact, but what I would say in reply to that is that if you're actually considering putting grenades on a rebel core, then you should, and if it was going to be a rebel trooper, then you should just like take that idea and then transplant it over to this other core called the fleet trooper, and instead put the grenades on them instead, because they actually want to be close to the enemy. And the rebel troopers, if they're close to the enemy, then it's honestly usually by happenstance.
I don't hate frag grenades in the SX-21 squad. I think it's okay.
It's a thing. It makes your dice certainly way better.
Yeah. The floor on your dice pool is also like way higher, with like 3 surging red dice to kind of like buoy the pool.
I agree that if anything, it's the frag grenade for sure, because you're getting surge to crit there.
Yeah, and the awkward thing about the shotgun is that you can't use it in melee with the rest of these grenades. So
yeah, so that frag grenade you also cannot use in melee, unlike the thermal detonator, funny enough. But therefore, that would make them a very attractive target to be meleeed if you did put a frag grenade on a shotgun and then just take away their efficiency. I think briefly, one other thing I just wanted to cover about rebel troopers in general is that they do function very well with exemplar and any sources of dodge from that. And by the same extension, they function quite well when you have a commander that can give lots of dodges out with the take cover action. So the first one that comes to mind is Leia, but the customizable commanders can also factor into that as well. And anything that makes it more likely that they can have a dodge token to spend, because as we said before, that is often going to be the difference between life and death for these guys. So that's something to consider when you're building a squad. You got anything else in Rebel Troopers, Mike?
Yeah, I think that I did want to just like call out, since the starters are gonna be like they're out roughly the same time as we're doing this mini. If you are watching this and trying to figure out like how should I build my units and stuff out of the starter box, I would really recommend basically building your squads as 4 squads. Probably, I think it's the ion gun and the shotgun that's in the core. And I would just put 1 heavy in each squad.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good starting point, specifically for the build out of the core box. You'll be quite happy with that as a starting point for your recon list.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, I think that does it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you like what we're doing, consider checking out our Patreon. And otherwise, we will see you in the next TFT Mini.